Delaney Rogers, and today I'm going to be talking to you about agoraphobia in children. Those who suffer from agoraphobia often go through a lot to get the diagnosis, and then they have to really work to get the treatment to be done well. Children who experience agoraphobia have a much harder time than the adult counterparts who experience agoraphobia. This is for a lot of reasons, but mostly because it is hard to get a diagnosis for children because they don't know how to express what they're feeling to their psychologist. So in the DSM-5, agoraphobia is defined as anxiety about being in places or situations from which escape might be difficult or embarrassing, or in which help might not be available in the event of having an unexpected or situationally predisposed panic attack or panic-like symptoms. So panic attacks are things that people with different anxiety disorders experience. It's not just agoraphobia. Anyone with an anxiety disorder can experience panic attack. There's also a disorder known as panic disorder, which is when they're prone to panic attacks. Panic attacks happen very differently for different people experiencing them, but most of the symptoms result in difficulty to breathe, sweating, shakiness, and they express it as feeling like they're going to die. You should care about agoraphobia because 1.8 million Americans suffer from it. Agoraphobia is common to manifest in children with other anxiety disorders, such as social anxiety, PTSD, things like that. And with this manifestation, they become fully apparent in adolescence, and they really do hinder them in their adult lives. Okay, so the diagnosis, like I said, is much easier to get in adults than in children. The diagnosis is done through consultation and evaluation with a psychologist. Usually the patient expresses their fears, and because the psychologist knows the symptoms of different disorders, they can then diagnose them. To diagnose an agoraphobiac, psychologists look for symptoms of fear of public places, and it's not just I'm scared of the grocery store because it stresses me out, but it literally hinders their everyday life. They physically cannot go to the grocery store, so they cannot get food because it scares them so much to be at a grocery store. Okay, so diagnosing children is really hard, like I said, because they don't know how to express their emotions correctly, but also because social anxiety is extremely common amongst school-age children. It's a very normal part of growing up to be afraid to have your parents drop you off at kindergarten on your first day because you are scared of the unknown. However, children that have agoraphobia are not just scared of the first day of school. It puts them in physical pain to go to school for every day of the year, and not just in kindergarten, first, second, third, all the way up until they get an actual diagnosis. Okay, so the treatment for all ages is fairly the same. Many psychologists use a form of cognitive behavioral therapy known as exposure therapy. So exposure therapy is defined as a psychological treatment that was developed to help people confront their fears. When people are fearful of something, they tend to avoid their feared objects, activities, or situations. Basically, this means that using exposure therapy, the psychologist will slowly present their patient with the things that scare them. So for an agoraphobiac, they would make baby steps. They would open the front door, and then day 2 would be sit on the porch. Day 3, go down to the sidewalk. Day 4, try to get to the stop sign at the end of the corner. So on and so forth until they can slowly get better. Exposure therapy is kind of dangerous. It has to be done by a psychologist that knows what they're doing, because you don't want to put to that patient more than they can handle in that time. For children, it's very difficult to find a balance of what's going to help them rather than scar them. You don't want to make their diagnosis worse, and you don't want to help them to manifest other anxious disorders. So what can we do? The most thing that's relevant right now is there's a lack of public knowledge and awareness about agoraphobia. The common person knows about anxiety disorders, but if you ask a random person on the street what they knew about agoraphobia, chances are they don't really know what this is. This is a problem because as people have kids, we notice that if there's no knowledge of agoraphobia and the kid expresses that they're afraid to go to school, they're afraid to go to the grocery store, they're afraid to go play in the park like normal kids do, the parent may not realize that these are all warning signs and take them to see a psychologist. If we raise the awareness of this disorder, it can help to get the diagnosis better for the child, making their life 1,000 times easier. And then just a little bit more information. I have some quotes for you. Exposures can seem complicated and difficult because they arouse the very anxieties and sensations of discomfort the client is looking forward to overcome. Despite these concerns, when exposure therapy is done thoughtfully and in conjunction with the underlying principles that guide it, it works and often quickly. So basically, this quote is just explaining how exposure therapy kind of works and why it can be considered a little bit dangerous. Though I say it's dangerous, but also most psychologists prefer exposure therapy to treat agoraphobia, and there's not many other ways that psychologists have found to treat it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. I hope I was able to teach you a little bit something about agoraphobia that I learned over this semester. Thank you for watching.